You've heard whispers, not headlines, not court documents. Whispers, the kind that travel through private jets at 40,000 feet, the kind that are never written down, the kind that powerful people pray will die in silence. But this story doesn't start with a trial. It doesn't start with a billionaire. It doesn't even start with an island. It starts with a phone call. A journalist named Daniel Harper was not supposed to pick up that night. Unknown number. 2:17 a.m. Rain hitting the window like someone trying to break in. He almost let it ring out. He didn't. "Do you believe islands can disappear?" the voice asked. No greeting, no name. Daniel thought it was a prank. Then the voice said three words that froze his blood. Little St. James. Click. The line went dead. The island officially existed. Satellite images, tourism records, property filings. Unofficially, it didn't. Locals in the U.S. Virgin Islands had a nickname for it. Ghost Hill. They said boats avoided it after sunset. They said security boats circled it even when no guests were present. They said helicopters arrived without flight plans. They said things, but nobody wrote them down because people who wrote things down tended to disappear from conversations. Daniel had covered corruption before. Wall Street fraud, offshore accounts, political lobbying scandals. He knew the scent of rot. This felt different because this wasn't just money. This was silence. And silence is expensive. Publicly, the island belonged to a financier who had once been untouchable. A man photographed with presidents, royalty, tech founders, scientists. He had built a life so polished it reflected power back at itself. He hosted dinners where Nobel laureates sat beside movie stars. He funded research. He donated to universities. He spoke softly and smiled like a man who had already won. Then came the charges. Then came the headlines. Then came the arrest. And then came the jail cell. And then came the morning he was found dead. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Daniel reopened the file. Because the phone call wasn't random, someone wanted him to look. But why him? Inside the official investigation archive, thousands of pages had been redacted. Entire paragraphs blacked out. Names replaced with blank rectangles. The island was mentioned repeatedly. Private flights, private guests, private events. No details, just coordinates. Coordinates that Daniel typed into an old satellite database. He zoomed in. There it was. A white villa perched above turquoise water. A temple-like structure on a hill. Strange geometric landscaping. A dock long enough for serious yachts. And something else. A secondary structure that didn't appear in public listing photos. No architectural records, no zoning description. Just there. He contacted a local pilot who once flew charter routes near the island. The pilot refused to meet in person, but he talked. "They used to tell us to divert airspace," the pilot said. "Private clearance, temporary restriction. Not military, not FAA standard. Something else." Something else how? Like someone powerful made a phone call. The deeper Daniel dug, the stranger it became. Construction materials shipped under shell company names. Security staff rotated every 6 months. Local contractors required to sign lifetime NDAs. Lifetime. For landscaping work. Why would hedges need legal protection? 3 weeks later, Daniel received an envelope. No return address. Inside, a single USB drive and a note. "If you want the truth, go to the marina, Dock 14, midnight." No signature, no explanation. Daniel didn't tell his editor. He didn't tell anyone. He went. Dock 14 smelled like salt and diesel fuel. Most boats were dark. One yacht, small but sleek, had its lights on. A woman stepped out. She wasn't what he expected. No trench coat. No sunglasses at night. She looked like someone who used to belong at galas. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You called me." "I didn't call you, I warned you." She handed him a folder. Inside were flight manifests, names partially visible, dates matching known public appearances in entirely different cities, impossible overlaps. "Alibis," she said, "built in advance." Daniel felt the weight of it. "You worked there," he said. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked out toward the dark water. They called it a sanctuary. A retreat for the brilliant, a place where ideas could evolve without judgment. And it was a theater. For what? For power. She described rooms that had no windows, conversations that were recorded, deals that weren't financial, influence traded like currency, not crimes proven, not yet. But leverage, secrets, the kind that make presidents sweat. You think the arrest was the end? She asked. It was containment. Containment of what? Exposure. Daniel asked the question nobody had answered. What really happened in that cell? She hesitated. Some doors close, she said quietly, so other doors never have to open. The wind picked up. A security boat passed in the distance. Her expression changed instantly. They're watching, she whispered. Who? Everyone. She stepped back onto the yacht. If you publish this, she said, you won't just be fighting ghosts. Then she left. No goodbye. Daniel went home and didn't sleep. He reviewed the manifests again, cross-referenced timelines. Noticed a pattern. The island visits aligned with major global decisions. Financial collapses, political appointments, billion-dollar mergers. Coincidence or coordination? The next morning, his apartment had been entered. Nothing stolen, just moved. A message without words. He checked his laptop. The USB files were gone. Deleted. Except one. A single image. Taken from inside the island. A photo of the temple-like structure on the hill, and beneath it, in faint carved lettering, control the secret. Control the world. Daniel realized something terrifying. The island wasn't the center. It was the stage. And stages exist for audiences. The real story wasn't what happened there, it was who needed it to happen. And somewhere, someone knew he was getting closer. Because that night, his phone rang again. 2:17 a.m., same unknown number. This time, the voice was different. Calmer, more dangerous. You're asking the wrong questions, it said. Then tell me the right ones. Daniel replied. A pause. Then, ask who built it. Click. Daniel replayed the last sentence in his head like a cursed lullaby. Ask who built it. Not who owned it, not who visited. Who built it? Because ownership is paperwork. Building is intent. And intent leaves fingerprints. He started where all modern secrets begin. Shell companies. A property like that island wasn't bought by a man. It was bought by a maze. LLCs, trusts, offshore entities, and legal names designed to die in court. Daniel pulled up the land registry and traced it backwards. The trail went. A Virgin Islands Trust, a Delaware LLC, a Panamanian holding company, a Cayman management entity that didn't list directors publicly. He hit a wall. So he did what investigative reporters do when they hit walls. He looked for the cracks. The crack was not the island. The crack was the money. Construction budgets leak. Contractors talk. Shipping manifests exist. Somebody signs for cement. Daniel found a small maritime supply company that had shipped building material to the island for years. Concrete additives, reinforced steel, generator parts. The invoices were boring until one line item made him sit up. Acoustic insulation, industrial grade. For a tropical villa, sure. But industrial acoustic insulation is not a luxury, it's a choice. It's what you use in places that must be quiet on the outside. And sealed on the inside. Daniel called the company. A tired voice answered. He pretended to be a contractor. Yeah, the man said. We delivered. Paid well. Cashier's checks. Always on time. Who signed? A pause. Look, I don't want trouble. Daniel lowered his voice. I'm not the police. The man exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. They weren't island people, he said. The guys who signed. They flew in, did inspections, then left, like they were checking an installation. Installation of what? Don't make me say it. Daniel's stomach tightened. Say it. A system. A system. What kind? Daniel searched the invoice codes, the product IDs, and found a matching catalog. The insulation was usually ordered for private server rooms, high security conference spaces, interrogation suites, audio surveillance containment. The last two words made his skin prickle. Audio surveillance. Daniel drove to the university library and pulled archival architectural magazines. Not because the island was famous, but because the people who designed secret places often left signatures elsewhere. A high-end architect might not brag about a private island project, but they might brag about their style. The temple on the hill was the giveaway. It wasn't a normal structure. It was too symbolic, too theatrical, too weird. He ran image comparisons, found similarities to a handful of elite retreats built for ultra-rich clients over the last decade. Remote locations, private airstrips, one in New Mexico, one in the Mediterranean, one in a mountain valley in Switzerland. All of them had the same design language: minimalist luxury, hidden inner rooms, odd ceremonial geometry, and all of them shared one consulting firm, a security architecture group that specialized in high privacy environments. Their website was polished, vague, and almost offensively innocent, protecting client confidentiality and experience. But Daniel found something else: a PDF brochure cached in an old web archive. It described services that were not on the current website: behavioral compliance planning, controlled information spaces, discrete recording integration, memory impact design. Memory impact design? That sounded like a euphemism that needed a shower. Daniel found the founder's name, a man with a thin online footprint, not famous, not public, which, in Daniel's world, meant one of two things. Either he was irrelevant or he was professional. The founder lived in Manhattan. Daniel booked an appointment under a fake name and walked into the firm's office like he belonged there. The receptionist smiled too cleanly. A wall display showed photos of serene resorts, glass villas, mountain lodges. No people, just places. Places without witnesses. A young consultant greeted Daniel and offered coffee. Daniel didn't touch it. "I'm interested in a private project," Daniel said. "Remote location. High discretion." The consultant nodded instantly, like he'd heard that sentence 1,000 times. "We can absolutely support that," he said. "What is the client's priority?" Daniel paused. Then he said it. "Control." The consultant's eyes flickered. Just once. A glitch. Then the smile returned. "Control can mean many things," he said smoothly. Daniel leaned in. "What did it mean on Little St. James?" Silence fell like a gun being cocked. The consultant's face didn't change, but the air did. "You should leave," he said quietly. Daniel stood. "No," Daniel said. "You should answer." The consultant didn't blink. "I don't know what you're talking about." Daniel pulled out the printed brochure from the web archive, slid it across the table. The consultant stared at it like it was radioactive. Then he said softly, "That brochure is not current." "I'm not asking about current," Daniel replied. "I'm asking about the man who built the mirror." The consultant's jaw tightened. "The mirror?" he repeated. Daniel watched his reaction. The mirror wasn't a random phrase. It landed. The consultant's voice dropped. "People come to places like that to feel invisible," he said, "and to make others feel seen." Daniel's mouth went dry. Seen how? The consultant stood and walked to the window, staring down at the street. "Imagine," he said, "a room designed so that every conversation sounds intimate, safe, like confession." He turned back. "And imagine," he continued, "that room is listening." Daniel felt cold. "So it was recording," he said. The consultant didn't confirm, didn't deny. He only said, "Power isn't always in what you do." He stepped closer. "Power is in what you can prove someone did." Then the consultant said something that changed everything. "You think the island was the secret? It wasn't." Daniel whispered, "Then what was?" The consultant's eyes hardened. The island was the collection point. He tapped the brochure. Data, video, audio, behavioral patterns. Who trusts who? Who lies well? Who breaks under pressure? Daniel's throat tightened. What happened to that data? The consultant's smile came back, but this time it was dead. You already know. Daniel shook his head. No, I don't. The consultant leaned in and spoke like he was delivering a verdict. It was never stored in one place. He paused. It was distributed to make sure no one person could destroy it. Daniel stumbled out of the building like he'd been hit. Outside, the city looked normal. People walking dogs, cars honking, a man eating a pretzel. But Daniel felt like he was seeing a different New York, layered over the real one. A city where the true economy wasn't money, it was leverage. That night, his editor finally called. Where the hell have you been? She snapped. I'm on something, Daniel said. Something huge. Then bring me sources, not paranoia. Daniel almost laughed. Sources. How do you source a machine that manufactures silence? He went home, checked his mailbox. Nothing. Checked his email. One new message, no subject line, just a video attachment. He hesitated, clicked. The screen showed a dim hallway, security camera angle. The timestamp was years old. A man walked past the camera, then another, then another. Familiar faces? Maybe. The video quality was just bad enough to keep plausible deniability alive. But the sound was crystal clear. And the sound made Daniel's heart stop. Because someone was speaking directly into a microphone, calm as a surgeon. This is how you build loyalty, the voice said. You give them a secret. A pause. And then you take it back. The camera shifted. It looked like it was inside a room with no windows. The angle caught a wall, and on that wall was the same phrase carved beneath the temple. Control the secret, control the world. Daniel sat frozen. This wasn't a news tip. This was a warning, a message to him, to remind him. They could reach him. They could show him what they wanted. And they could prove what they wanted. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel answered. Stop, the voice said. Different again. This one sounded older, richer, almost amused. Or what? Daniel asked. A soft chuckle. Or you'll learn what islands are really for. Daniel swallowed. Who are you? Another chuckle, then ask who survived. Click. Daniel stared at the blank screen, the weight of it hitting him. Ask who built it. Ask who survived. Which meant someone didn't just die, someone escaped. Daniel didn't sleep. Not because he couldn't, because he was afraid of what would happen if he did. The message replayed in his mind like a coded transmission. Ask who survived. Not who died, who survived. That meant the official ending wasn't the ending. He reopened everything. Arrest timeline, court filings, witness statements, prison logs. The official narrative was airtight, clean, final, too clean. Daniel noticed something subtle in the records from the months before the arrest. Private jet logs showed a sudden drop in island traffic, but not to zero. One aircraft kept appearing, a smaller jet. Charter registration routed through 3 shell companies. It flew out of the island days before the arrest. Destination listed as unspecified private airfield. Daniel cross-referenced weather radar archives. He found it. A flight path that deviated midair. It never went where it claimed. It landed in a desert state. He traced ownership of the jet. The LLC dissolved 6 months later. But the jet itself? Still active. Flying. Registered now under a corporate leasing group in Europe. Daniel leaned back in his chair. If someone escaped, they would need protection. And protection costs loyalty. And loyalty costs leverage. The name appeared in a buried witness interview transcript, redacted almost entirely, but one line slipped through. Was removed from the island 2 days prior. Removed. Not left. Removed. Daniel zoomed in. The redaction wasn't perfect. Under digital enhancement, a faint letter pattern emerged. 3 characters. M. A. R. Daniel's heart pounded. He searched former associates, found a man whose name fit the pattern. Marcus Ardent, former tech investor. early cryptocurrency pioneer, publicly disappeared from media years ago after health reasons. He had been photographed on the island just once, smiling, standing near the temple structure. Daniel dug into Marcus. His company dissolved quietly, but his personal trust ballooned. Massive capital movement 6 months after the island's last recorded major event. Money routed through privacy jurisdictions. Not illegal, just careful. Marcus Ardent now lived in a high security estate in a remote European valley. No interviews, no appearances. Daniel booked a flight. The estate was absurdly beautiful. Stone walls, rolling hills, a lake reflecting mountains. The kind of place people go to disappear in plain sight. Daniel requested a meeting under the pretense of writing about digital privacy pioneers. Marcus agreed, which surprised him. Marcus Ardent was older than Daniel expected. Thinner, paler, eyes like someone who hadn't trusted sunlight in years. "You flew a long way," Marcus said calmly. "I had questions," Daniel replied. Marcus smiled faintly. "Everyone does." Daniel didn't waste time. "You were removed from the island 2 days before the arrest." Marcus's expression didn't change. "That's an interesting choice of word," he said. Daniel leaned forward. "Why were you removed?" Silence. The wind outside brushed against tall windows. Marcus studied Daniel like a chessboard. Then he said something that made Daniel's stomach drop. "Because I understood what it was becoming." "What was it becoming?" Marcus exhaled slowly. "Insurance." Daniel waited. Marcus continued. "You think the island was indulgence. It wasn't. Indulgence was bait." He stood and walked to a bookshelf. "Real power," Marcus said, "comes from future control." He pulled out a small leather notebook, set it on the table. "This," he said quietly, "is a copy of something that was never meant to be copied." Daniel's pulse surged. Marcus didn't open it. He just placed his hand on it. "They built a system," Marcus said. "A system that ensured no guest could ever fully leave." "Blackmail," Daniel whispered. Marcus shook his head. "Blackmail is crude. This was architecture." Daniel didn't understand. Marcus leaned in. "They didn't threaten people. They invested in them." "In what way?" "They provided introductions, funding, access, reputation." He tapped the notebook. "And in return, they collected vulnerability." Daniel finally asked the question that had been choking him since the dock. "Was it criminal?" Marcus stared at him. "Parts of it," he said carefully. "Yes." "And the rest?" "The rest was transactional." Marcus opened the notebook. Inside were initials. Dates, codes, not explicit crimes, not confessions, patterns. "Every person listed here," Marcus said, "owed something." "Owed what?" Marcus met Daniel's eyes. "Future obedience." Daniel felt the room tilt. "Why are you alive?" he asked. Marcus's lips curved in something like regret. "Because I refuse to owe." "And they let you walk?" "No." Marcus's voice hardened. "I bought my exit." "How?" Marcus's hand hovered over the notebook, with something they couldn't replicate. "What?" Marcus held Daniel's gaze. "Proof." Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. "You have it." Marcus didn't confirm, but he didn't deny. "The island was the collection point," Marcus said, "but the real vault was mobile." Daniel remembered the consultant's words. Distributed. "So the data still exists?" Marcus nodded once. "Yes." "And the man in the cell?" Marcus's eyes darkened. He was no longer the only one holding the key. Daniel's mind raced. If the data is distributed, then who controls it now? Marcus closed the notebook slowly. "That," he said, "is the wrong question." "Then what's the right one?" Marcus stood. "Who benefits from it remaining buried?" A silence stretched between them. Daniel realized something chilling. Marcus wasn't scared. He was careful. "You think this is about exposure," Marcus said softly. "It isn't." "Then what is it?" Marcus walked toward the window. This is about stability. Daniel frowned. Stability? Imagine, Marcus said, if everything came out at once. He turned. Markets crash, governments fall, institutions fracture. He stepped closer. You don't release a nuclear archive without consequences. Daniel felt something shift inside him. Then why talk to me? Marcus's eyes sharpened. Because you're already inside it. Daniel's breath caught. What does that mean? Marcus looked at him steadily. Your first call, the USB, the consultant meeting. He paused. You think you found this story? A thin smile appeared. They fed it to you. Daniel's stomach dropped. Why? Marcus's voice turned cold. Because you're being positioned. For what? Marcus stepped back, voice barely above a whisper. For credibility. Daniel felt the room shrink. You're saying this is controlled? Marcus nodded once. They're measuring you. Measuring what? How far you'll go? Daniel felt the weight of it. Every move he made, monitored. Every discovery, possibly permitted. You survived, Daniel said slowly. But you didn't destroy it. Marcus's jaw tightened. No. Why? Marcus looked older suddenly. Because once you pull that thread, there's no guarantee the fabric holds. Daniel left the estate with more questions than answers. On the flight home, he stared out the window. Clouds below him like a white ocean. He thought about islands. Islands aren't just land. They're isolation. They're laboratories. They're controlled environments. And the temple on the hill, it wasn't religious, it was symbolic. A place above the rest. A place of oversight. A place where you watch. When Daniel landed, his phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. You met Marcus. His hand shook. Another message. Good. Then, now ask about the temple. Daniel stared at the skyline. If Marcus had been removed because he understood, then what did he understand about the temple, and why did someone want Daniel to know? He suddenly realized something worse than surveillance. This wasn't just observation, it was narrative shaping. And he was a character.